How we doing, everybody?
Hi, Dan.
I'm ready to get rocking if you guys are. So if you want to open up with some questions, and we can take it in whatever direction you guys need to.
The loss of Micah, what does that mean, and how will you make up for that?
Well, I think what we've learned certainly in 2021, we've had a lot of people in and out of the lineup, and every week it was seemingly something. And so I think that's been the way of the 2021 season. I think more than anything, you adjust and you attack, and I do love that about our defense. You never know who's going to get a chance or a moment to step up, but I do know that they'll be ready to roll. And I think this season we've definitely lived it as coaches and players. And so the numbers and the names change some, but the one thing that can't change is what we do and who we are. And I think that's true in football, and that's true in life, that you adjust and you attack. And we'll certainly go down that way with Leighton and with Kiki. They'll have some, more responsibility on their plate. But it has been the course for all of us, covering the team, and for you guys covering the team, and for us as coaches and players, just a lot of adjustment, a lot of moving parts. We may have a few more who get some opportunities to play as well. So I don't know what number we're up to on defense, but we'll be ready to attack for sure.
Mike has drawn consideration for Defensive Player of the Year. You certainly seen some Defensive Player of the Year candidates and winners in Seattle. Is he worthy of that? Is that type of season he was having before having to miss his last game?
Well, I think the production definitely speaks for itself, and probably, Clarence, one of the things that jumps out to me is the versatility, of that. And I was thinking the last player probably was defensive player of the year that I coached was Jason Taylor, but he was at right end and was ripping off the edge, and don't get me wrong, he was kicking ass just about every play and every chance he could get. But I think what speaks to Mike's year this year was the versatility, playing some at end and playing it at backer, and to have a chance to do that as a rookie, I think that's a challenge, and he certainly answered that one.
With Keno out last week and Micah this week, how did you feel Leighton Vander Esch stepped into the position last week? And did he play one of his best games of the season, it seemed like? Yeah,
I think you're on the right track, Jory. He was aggressive. His tackling was really on point. I thought up in this season, I thought that was his best game. And I had a sense he'd answer the challenge. He's that type of guy, that type of player. And so when the moment was there, he was 100% ready to capture and go, knowing that some of his reps would be elevated. But, I thought that for him, although we didn't play our best as a defense, I thought for Leighton specifically, it was probably his best outing.
And on that first drive versus Arizona, I know it feels like a minute ago now, y'all had the 24-yard run, the 42-yard pass. You've talked about explosive plays. What do you attribute some of that to? And do you just accept that if you're going to play the aggressive play style, some of that's going to happen, even though you want to get better at it?
No, I get where you're going on that. I think, and certainly the game had a tough ending for us, but I think it's always a great reminder, not just at the ending, but as you're speaking about in the beginning, like playing excellent on defense is really a relentless pursuit of like doing right longer. And so like on the first play, we really didn't execute our defense to the level that it needed to on, like one particular spot. And so I do my job so you can do yours. In other words, like, hey, trust that I'll set the edge so the ball can come back inside. So when you have those ones where you just, try to take a shot or, make something happen to make a play, I think that can be a dangerous thing. And one of the things I spoke about was chasing plays versus making plays. And you don't want to get into the first one of chasing, because the system and how the plays are going to be there. When you feel like you're going to over try and chase a play to make, sometimes that's the result of those. So I'm looking forward for us, getting right back to playing the way that we like and doing that.
You never want to lose a guy, obviously, but with Anthony Brown being out, is there an added excitement level to see more of Kelvin Joseph like you've seen down the last couple of games here?
Yeah, definitely. I guess, just a few weeks ago when, Jordan being out, I thought it really showcased and highlighted, Kelvin putting the work in to be ready. And so that moment, you really get a chance to prove yourself, to say, all right, in this moment, how's it going to go down? How are you going to be ready? And I thought the work that he's put in allowed himself to say, when the moment comes, I'll be ready. It's not the easiest thing to do, Todd, to make sure you're wanting to go, and all you're doing is in practice. You're not getting the chances to go. And so he had some play time in the dime package and others, but having that moment, I guess, proved, the work that you put in about getting ready and playing, it paid off. And, like he'll get some more opportunities for that tomorrow. Or not tomorrow, but, Saturday.
Feels like tomorrow.
Yeah, I don't know what day it is, but like in my world right now, it's kind of Friday. So we'll all adjust and get it ripping from there.
Can your decision to at least delay a talk with Jacksonville, what was behind that?
Just honestly, I'm enjoying what I'm doing, and I'm really having the time of my life with this group of guys. And so I just wanted to kind of be right where I'm at, and that's really, it was nothing more than that or past that. So that's where it went.
This week you got Jalen Hurts, and previous week you had Kyler Murray, and who knows if you might see Murray again in the next round. But how good of a test is this to see Hurts to help your defense against a mobile quarterback once again?
Yeah, and I think it's one of the cool parts of the game. There's so many different styles, of offenses and players that you're seeing, and so that last week and this week to see that added dimension, of a quarterback outside the pocket. And I think what's different about both Arizona and Philadelphia, some teams run zone read as a call it like just a wrinkle, but more handoffs than not. And with those two quarterbacks specifically, there are definitely some design quarterback keeps, as part of the program. And so it adds another, element of the preparation and how to go and how do you play. And, but yeah, Hurts, they're different players. Where one utilizes, change of direction, where Hurts, he has got real, power to break tackles, to go through things where, Murray's, he's just hard to get to with his quickness and his speed. But Hurts has certainly earned our respect. When he gets outside the pocket, he's not playing quarterback anymore, when he keeps it. We'll have to treat him as a running back. This is not the quarterback that's going to slide. He's earning first downs and breaking tackles. So when he becomes a runner, he's got to be, defended like a running back and a good running back.
On the subject of Defensive Player of the Year, again, for Micah, a lot of the people who vote for those awards, they haven't seen much of Micah. They've probably seen him kind of in passing. I think your perspective carries in a lot of weight. What has his presence and his versatility this season meant to your defense?
Well, I think it's a fun defense to be a part of. One, because we've got a lot of unique guys that when you're first kind of putting a package together, you're trying to find, okay, who can do some of these jobs, and whether it's, guarding a tight end or like Jordan playing in the slot, or, like early on, a big guy like Brent Urban and Carlos, who are run players, and Randy and, Law ripping off the edges, where he, I thought, kind of crossed into a couple of different worlds, where he was a defensive end for some of the time. He's a linebacker for some of the time. We blitzed him from off the ball. So I thought the versatility within a group of guys that have a lot of, we got a lot of different types of guys that were able to defend different players. And I thought, so his ability to go in and out of two position groups fluidly, that's not easy. And it's not easy for a veteran player, but you can imagine how difficult it is when you don't really know the game in the NFL yet and all the, the defense inside out. So little by little, it just, became clearer and clearer that he was able to handle that. And so we weren't going to do that right away. But after Law got hurt, in practice going into that, I think was it in the second game? We made the shift to go because he'd been, playing some defensive end here and there, but having the ability to go in an entirely different position, meeting room for weeks at a time, and then go back to another position, I can't tell you the stress that could cause some people. Good news for him, he doesn't get stressed out a lot, so that's good, where he didn't panic and say, oh shit, what am I going to do now? I got to go do this. So he was kind of always up for the challenge and ready. But I think for anybody, that's been around the game to know playing multiple positions, it's a challenge. And I'm not talking about like, oh, I could play guard or I could play, center. That's different where you're part of the same group. I'm talking two totally, different calls, different skill sets. And so I thought the versatility for him this year has been extraordinary.
When he's manned up against a running back and the team motions out that running back to kind of ID that assignment,
Yep.
is it problematic at all when, do you view it as problematic at all when they, then run a play that kind of goes away from Micah because they have a good idea of where he is? Or in your view, does that just simply shorten the field and that's all fine by you, that Micah's kind of out of the play with him being motioned out?
No, I think that's okay because, like we have them going forward a lot. And so you don't want to be, as teams are scouting, looking at you, you don't want to be an always, when this alignment happens, this always happens. So you don't want to get into the always and the nevers. And so with him, there's not a lot of those. Could he come off the edge and guard? Yes. Could he be off the ball and guard? Yes. Could he be up on the line and blitz? Yes. So I think it's important when you're looking at your own self-scouting. That's what the staff here has done a good job of making sure there's not something, hey, this means this, and we wanted that to mean he could be there, but it may not mean that. And so I think I'm talking in code right now, but I hope you understand it's not always what you think. And I think that's a good thing to have on a defense, because as good as the offenses are, and certainly for me, last offseason and some of last season, studying teams, having disguise and versatility as part of your defense was super important to me, to make sure when the quarterback gets the ball in his hands, a lot better to get into the coverage as opposed to prior. And so often when a motion happens, that's information to say, okay, now we have man-to-man, now we have this look, and then they can go to a play. And so defenses, I think, the better defenses in the league certainly have ways to counter that, to make sure that they're not just always getting what they want or always getting the proper read. And so if we can just sometimes a split second or a split decision to wait, that can be the difference in an incompletion or a quarterback having to hold the ball, and then you allow guys like 94 and 90 to rip off the edge. So it doesn't have to be a long disguise, but I think it is important to not just look the same all the time. And that's a big shift for me coming up in my background with Pete in Seattle. We played so much of one style of defense, and it was super effective for us. But it certainly felt like for me, leading into this job, that shift would have to change. And I thought the guys have done an excellent job on that. And really, Joe Witt's the champion of that, of making sure the looks are different, especially from the coverage side, to make it look alike and play differently. So long answer for you, but it doesn't bother me when the defense executes as it's supposed to. I always just want to make sure that we're not just looking like one thing all the time.
Hey, Dan, you touched on my question a little bit a minute ago, but I was just curious, do you think it's fair to say that DeMarcus's injury kind of changed the trajectory of Micah's season? Obviously, you guys knew he was talented, but I was just wondering if, again, maybe in a world where everybody's healthy, you don't ask him to do so much so soon.
That's a fair question, and I think it's an accurate one, because you probably wouldn't have made some of the changes that we made based on the needs of where we're at. Because if I'm not mistaken, I think Dorrance got hurt shortly after that as well, and he was out for an extended time with an ankle. So kind of, defensive end and another defensive end were out. So I think that's a fair and accurate statement, that he probably wouldn't have had as many snaps at defensive end, and maybe we wouldn't have found out some things. So sometimes what you think is the worst thing that could happen, sometimes not, from a different circumstance. I'm not saying DeMarcus's injury was good, but I am saying that we did find out some new information that has provided us some value as we head into this week and beyond about a player's versatility.
Dan, I know you've talked to us about your off-season study last year, talking to different players and coaches you'd work with, and how you look to find unique positions for players. But what did that process actually look like when you got this job? I mean, are you saying, like, let me look at clips of each of these players? Is it X amount of years? Like, how do you actually do that to determine what their unique skill sets were?
Well, I think to go back when I first arrived here, everybody who was here, that's my first part of the priority was to say only that player. It's almost like do a scouting job, like you were just scouting that player for the very first time. And so I thought I wanted to write down and have a real clear opinion on if this player was on the team, this is how we would see featured him because of the things that I saw on that tape. Some you didn't see a lot of, but I had remembered Neville from coming out of Oklahoma because I had evaluated him. So it may have not been the same jobs, but I did a lot of work on him specifically, into the draft. So it wasn't all Cowboy film for some of the youngest players, but it was some, for the ones who are veterans, a guy like Jordan or Anthony or Dono, it was strictly the Cowboy film. And so I just kind of just kept taking notes to say, here's where we're at. And then I tried to be clear about what pieces maybe we could add to the group, because this is the style based on who we already have that we could add to it. So two-part process. One, the evaluation of the players that were here, both under contract and those who were free agents. And then what could we add to that, both in free agency and the draft. And it was a process that was really rewarding to go through, because it also allowed me to have more conversations with Mike, more conversations with Will, not just about the current players, but about free agency. But I really didn't want like too many early opinions on it. It's like choosing a friend, like, oh, don't talk to them, he's an asshole. Like, or I shouldn't say that, sorry. 10-second delay. Make your own opinion on your relationships. And I wanted to do that in the way. So can we take that back 10 seconds? No, we're not allowed to do that. Okay, sorry. But I wanted to have my own opinion on the players, and that helped me, because you can get jaded when someone tells you, hey, they can do this or they can't do that. Like, let me just go there first. And so before I really got into any discussions, I wanted to have my own opinion and see if it matched or if we saw the player differently. So I apologize to anybody we offended there.
Absolutely. And on a different note, you've obviously been to the playoffs and deep in the playoffs with multiple teams. What, in your experience, is the biggest difference of how a defense needs to approach the postseason versus the regular season? Is it just you're facing better quarterbacks? Do you want to embrace your identity, add players? How do you approach that?
To be honest with you, you really don't want your approach to change. And so I think that's why you have standards of what you want to go after. And I think the best of the best have urgency, both in their mental and their physical, in a sense of like, as we're going, there's a real purpose in what you're doing. And so that doesn't just start, when the kickoff happens. It's all the way through the week. It's the Wednesdays, the Thursdays, the Fridays, all the way through to lead up into the game. So when you enter that, you're really ready to go. And I said to them, I do have a lot of experience, in the NFL. And I said, I think the most important thing is, and I just went around the room for those who've been in a long time, just stay in the moment of this game. And what would I tell you if I told you this season might be the only one in your career you're ever in the postseason? That's the kind of urgency you're looking for. Not to say that's going to happen, but if you had that kind of urgency, what would that look like? And it doesn't have to change in a week or in 2 weeks to go. It just has to stay consistently really good. No one has to put the cape on to win the game. We all just have to do our jobs really well. And so sometimes you may have seen on a team or a player where you're just over trying because the moment's getting big. Well, what happens is time to time or player to player, that's your moment to make the play. And that's what's a cool part about being a part of this defense. There's a brotherhood that knows he can make a play, but you don't have to go over try to do it. But when it comes, your moment to go make it, they deliver. And that's really what, like having a brotherhood on a team is, at its core, knowing like, hey man, I know you're going to make that play when it comes your way.
Dan, you hear in basketball positionless, they kind of get away from this is a 1, a 2, a 3, or 4. Does Micah have that ability to kind of not have a position with what he can do? And do you think teams will start looking at players differently maybe in the draft process because of what he's been able to do?
Yeah, I'd say maybe not quite that far, where it's no position, but I do think drafting and selecting players who have versatility, that can be a big thing, because there are certain skill sets that, leads to what a guy can do. Like, in the NBA, like if you're a post player or a guy who can go behind the arc and shoot threes, when you have the ability to shoot threes and drive, you now opened a whole nother dimension to your game. Where in the NFL, rushing, guarding, covering, those kind of things, when you have more than one skill set to go, I think that's an important thing. And I would say, moving forward, I bet more teams have, not because of Mike, I'm just saying just because of the versatility of the NFL, the systems, that people who have, length and size to do things, it allows you to play more than one position. And so you don't want to have a team full of exceptions where you can only be, a one-hole player where this is all you do. But you might use the analogy like in baseball, where you're a 5-tool player and you can hit, you can run the bases, you can throw, all of those things. And so maybe there's a way, Todd, you can be on the cutting edge of defining new football positions. So you can make a 2-tool linebacker, where he's got more jobs to do. But I do think we're headed that way because of the nature of the offenses. There's mobile quarterbacks, there's tight ends that split out that don't really play tight end, they're really wide receivers. So there's a lot of cool players in the NFL that are hard to guard, and in my next life I'm definitely coming back as an offensive coach to attack some of the defense. So it's hard, but it's really cool to see the matchups and how to go defend guys, and it's what makes coaching defense so much fun. All right, you guys have a good one.
Thank you. Appreciate it.